This is a share that I gave on Shabbos, Shevii Shel Pessach, Tufshin Pei 2025. Was quite a long shiur. So I gave a lot of different points. I started off saying that what I said in the week before, that the Korban Pesach is a renewal of the passport of a person to belonging to the Jewish nation. As we see very clearly also that therefore the Torah was very much was elaborating on who is not allowed to eat a Korban Pesach. So a Ben Echo is not allowed to eat a Toshav, and a Sochir are not allowed to eat but an Evet is allowed to. So that's a very interesting concept because that means that those definitions, although Chazal, they learn from it, they give it a very religious perspective, but from a textual perspective, these are different types of passports, different type of nationality, whether they are temporary residents, immigrants that are here, economic immigrants, tourists, etc. All these are different kind of visas or different kind of passports, colors if you want, and only the ones that are really belong to the nation, they are the ones that are allowed to eat of the Korban Pesach. This is the whole idea of the Pesach is to renew this contract, renew this passport, and that's why you see also that the first people that the first year when they could not make the Korban Pesach, they came to Moshe Rabbeinu and they were very pushy to be able to also have a Korban Pesach, because what about them? Because they felt left out, and that's also the reason why there's chorus on the Korban Pesach, that as I explained many times, chorus is not just a neshama, it's not a religious punishment, but it is also down here actually losing of your passport, excommunication. You are banned from being part of the Jewish nation. We take away your passport and we send you out. Basically, you're not part of the Jewish nation anymore. That is the chorus, or especially when you say koristi kores, when it's a tzivui to be excommunicating. This loshon, koristi kores, is a difficult loshon when it comes to chorus. If it's only for Shomayim, then why does the Torah tell us to be make a chorus to another person? There is no chorus for another person. We cannot do it. But here you see that we can do it from a textual perspective. From Torah Shebichsav, chorus means an excommunication. From a Torah Shebal Peh, chorus means the neshama. It has to do something up there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing. But now we can understand, somebody does not bring a Korban Pesach, he is not part of the Jewish nation, if he does it on purpose. But in order to prove that, I brought down a posuk which I discovered this year. V'chiyogur itcho ger v'oso Pesach Lashem. It says in Parshas Boy in Perek Yud Beis posuk Memches. So v'chiyogur itcho ger, and then if you have a person that joins the nation, v'oso Pesach Lashem, and he wants to do, and he's going to do the Pesach Hashem, and he also and he will also make bris milah, and only then he can do the Korban Pesach, because this is a condition that you have to have all your children should be also have a milah, but also yourself if you are mamash ger. Then v'hoyok ezrach oretz. But it says what does it mean? Normally you mean that it's for the next posuk. That koger koezrach. That ger has all the dinim like the ezrach. In this case, halachically we call a ger tzedek, and he will have the same dinim as an ezrach. But you can also read the posuk v'hoyo ke'ezrach ha'oretz is the condition. If he wants to be ke'ezrach ha'oretz, he has to bring a Korban Pesach. So after the first Korban Pesach that a ger is bringing, a ger that joined the Jewish nation, that lives in Eretz Yisrael in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, then in that case he will bring a Korban Pesach, and with that he will be confirmed as being part of the land of the nation. It's a very interesting point of view, very interesting posuk that I would like to share with you. I think there is a medrash, and there is a chazal that actually wants to learn that every ger should bring a Korban Pesach. So the moment that you become a ger, besides the Shalmei ger that you have to, the Shlomim that you have to bring, you might also would have to bring a Korban Pesach anytime in the year. And then Chazal say, no, there is no such a thing because it's B'shor Shematzu Moror Munochim Lefonecho, and that's only on Pesach. So you see here something really interesting, that there is such a Havamina, that every ger should bring a Korban Pesach. So it just confirms what that we just explained. There is, I went back to the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and we saw that there are 4 Haggadahs. There's the Haggadah Shel Rav and Haggadah Shel Shmuel. We start with Haggadah Shel Shmuel, that is from Avodim Minu L'Farav Mitzrayim, basically, and Ve'etzeinu Hashem Mishom, B'yot Chazoka. And then you have the other, the Haggadah from Rav, which is Metchil Oiv Avodah Zorah Yavosin, V'achshik Bon Amokum L'Avodah Zorah. So Shmuel is the one that he says that Haggadah has to go over the physical liberation, the becoming a nation, our independence. Is Shmuel is Lishitosoy that holds that Ein Bein Yimois HaMashiach Lo'olam Hazeh Elo Shibut Malchus Bilvad. And then you have Rav, who is more the religious point of view that he brings forward, which is that Mitchil Oiv Avodah Zorah Yavosin, V'achshik Amokum L'Avodah Zorah. So the Iker of the Yetzias Mitzrayim is the Kervono Hamokum L'Avodah Zorah, which is the Kabbalah HaTorah. So and that is the discussion that we always have, is Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Iker, the becoming independent, the getting loose of the Shibut of Paroi. And then, of course, we have received the Torah. That is a secondary, or is the main part of going out of Mitzrayim is to receive the Torah. And when we go into the land, it is a way to be Mekayim the mitzvah from the Torah. These are the two different ways of seeing it. I said that there is also another Haggadah, the Haggadah of Arami Ovedovi, which is also mentioned in the Mishnah. And this is the drush. This is more where you have to darshan the posuk. This is more for the intellectual son. And then you have the more visual Haggadah, which is the Haggadah from Rabbi Gamliel, where how the best way to teach your children, to show your children, is by pointing, by visualization technique, and by saying it loud, Pesach Matzu Moreh. What I found, what I saw somewhere bringing down, is that actually Rabbi Gamliel is, if you want, very much has the point of view of celebrating the past. In other words, it's the past that counts. The main idea of Pesach is to celebrate good things that we had in the past, to remember the past. It's kind of a nostalgia perspective that he proposes. And indeed, he, by the Pesach, by the Matzah, and by the Moror, if you will check in the Haggadah, you will see always it refers to Avoseinu. So Pesach shoy Avoseinu oichlem zman shebeis hamikdash shoy kaim. Matzah zu shonu oichlem al shumo. And then he explains that the shel al shumo al shum shelo hispik b'tzeikum shel Avoseinu lahachmir. And then Moror zeh shonu oichlem al shumo al shum shemeru hamitzrim eschaya Avoseinu b'mitzrayim. And so therefore Rabbi Gamliel is very focused on Avoseinu, and not at all about us. It's not about us. It's all about celebrating what happened to our parents. There is a Gemara in Psochim, which actually is mentioning, when the Mishnah is mentioning it, I think it was based on Rabbi Gamliel. There is a rover. I don't have it in front of me, but the rover that says that we have to also say about us. We should also mention about Lonu, that Hashem also saved us as well, to be Nichlal as well. But this is not what Rabbi Gamliel did, and therefore, straight after Rabbi Gamliel, the Baal HaGodah already corrects it. And therefore, he starts straight away, and therefore, etc. So basically what it is, it's the critique and a bit of answer to Rabbi Gamliel. We have to say Rabbi Gamliel. On the other hand, we added on and said, Lo Yisavaseinu bilvad go ala Kodesh Baruch Hu. So it's kind of a critique on the mamma that we said before. El Avaseinu go al עמוהם. שניהם אבויסונו, רצי משום, למען הובי אסונו, לא סס לנו את ארץ אשר נשבע לאבויסנו. So this is the bit of the playing around with the word. It's not only Avosenu, but it's also the Lonu. And therefore he says also, לפיכך אנחנו חייבים להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפעול לרום להדר, לבורך, להלל ולקלס למי שעושה לאבויסנו ולנו את כל הניסים האלו. So you see here that they are really pointing out that to correct a little bit the point of view of Rabbi Gamliel, who says that it is mainly laavosenu. And the last part, so we have already laavosenu Rabbi Gamliel, then the Balagoda says laavosenu velonu, and then comes Rabbi Akiva in his broche, the Goal Israel, that he says it's a much longer broche, and he's the one that it's the Rabbi Akiva's broche that we are saying. And there we are actually, it's very interesting, because he says indeed, Asher golonu vegoales avosenu. So here we have the lonu velavosenu. So first comes the as, and then afterwards only comes the lavosenu. So I just very interesting to point out the way that we see it. So it comes also only, either it is only a celebration from the past for Avosenu, or it is a Lavosenu, but also Lonu as well. We have to also participate in this. We have to think that we are also participating in that, or it's actually Asher Go Lonu Vego Ales Avosenu. So, or is it something which is actually first for us, and also, of course, based as a framework? We use the framework of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Remember that I spoke about the fact that Rabbi Akiva is that some say, not from the Haredi group of Meforshim, but some say that the Maase, the Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Luz ben Azar, Rabbi Akiva, the Rabbi Tarfon, Shevii Bnei Brak, that they were in the city of Rabbi Akiva, which is difficult. Why would Rabbi Eliezer, which is the Rebbe, go to Rabbi Akiva's home? What about the family? How come they didn't see that it's morning, etc.? That they explained that this Maase was actually, Ba'oisa Lailo means that night that they decided to finally go and rebel against the Romans, and this is was together with the Bar Kokhba that they when they started off the revolution against the Romans, and that was in the night. Therefore, they had to decide downstairs. They went in the cellar downstairs, and everything that we see here are actually, if you want, code words. So when they speak about how many makkahs there were in the Yam, whether there were, like Rabbi Akiva says, 250 in the Yam and 50 in the on the land, it means it's like it's a little bit like how many military resources we need to put. So it was more code words of how strong do we have to fight against the Romans. In any case, it's a very, very interesting point of view, but just wanted to share that as well. And just one little detail is the Lovon Arami. Lovon Arami, as it was written here, is Lovon is Arami. It can also be read as Romai. Arami and Romai is the same word, and the Roman and Lovon is Albinos. Albinos was at the time the responsible for the security from in Eretz Israel. He was a tremendous Rosher who tried to really kill all the Jews. He was really quite a nasty person. And so that's why the Ma Bikesh Lovon Arami means Albinos de Ramoi, the Roimai, sorry, from Rome. So that is one part that I wanted to mention. There is something else which just to explain a little bit. So Lavosenu and Lonu is actually represents the past and the future, the Bonim. The Bonim represents the future, and the Oves represents the past. In Hebrew, we say Bet Avot is a place that all the people are living. The idea is that the older people always look at the past. They celebrate the past. They're more nostalgia towards the past. While the youngsters, the son, the Bonim, they look on the future. Shuvo Bonim. It always sounds that the one that will return will be the Bonim. In other words, the Oves, they are paralyzed by the past, while the Bonim are too anxious to go forward. Actually, not too anxious. They are too excited to move forward, and they only look at the future without looking at the past. And that is a problem because those two generations will always clash. One will not understand the other, and that's why the Pasuk says, "V'heshiv leiv ovois al bonim, v'leiv bonim al avoiso." So, in other words, that two have to work together in order to create a harmony and the unity of the values. That we have to remember where we're coming from, but we also need to make sure that we move forward and that we're not staying stuck in the past. That's a bit the message that Manitou once gave, a beautiful word. I brought down from the Pri Tzaddik on which he wrote on Vayikro to Chag Pessach that the reason I already spoke, why do we have to eat the matzah and the matzah and the Pesach together, according to Hillel? What is the idea behind eating it in one? So I explained you a few weeks ago that it's about the concept of a shepherd versus a farmer. So you have, we were shepherds, especially Avrom and Yaakov. Yitzchak was a bit of a farmer, but our forefathers were shepherds, therefore we were moving around continuously. There's not a problem. But Hashem wants us to actually become farmers. And therefore, the job of Mitzrayim could be to teach us the Avodah Shebasodeh. So by Vamor Chayim, the Mitzrayim saw that we were shepherds. They hated shepherds, as Yosef HaTzadik clearly says in the Pasuk, that you should tell them that you are shepherds so that he should give you the land of Goshen, because the Mitzrayim, they hate shepherds. A farmer, there's a big fundamental difference between a farmer and a shepherd. A farmer is a person that is linked to the land and defends the land, is very attached to the land, while a shepherd is not attached at all to the land. He's somebody that moves around, is more nomadic life, plus also has more time to think, to be more spiritual and looking after individual animals, etc. So it's a very important lesson also to become a shepherd before you become a leader. Moshe Rabbeinu had to become a shepherd in order for him to become a leader. There's 40 years. Some say that he was 40 years, had to be a shepherd in order to be able to become the leader. But David HaMelech as well had to be a shepherd before to become a king. So, but the idea is that Hashem wants us to become, this is Rabbi Yoshua Soloveitchik explains, that Hashem wants us to become farmers in order to defend the land. Otherwise, we'll be continuously wandering around. The moment that there will be one hardship, we would leave the country and we would go away. Now, so Rabbi Yoshua Soloveitchik explains that the idea is that we should always become one. So the shepherds and the farmers should live together in harmony. In other words, we need to keep the shepherd's mentality, but also the farmer's mentality. We have to try to unite those two different values. And that's why I said, this is my personal chiddush, is that the matzah and the korban Pesach is a gedi, is the food of a shepherd, and matzah is the food of the farmers. And when you eat them together, it's actually when you roll them together as a shwarma lafa, I don't know you call them, then this becomes unity. So to show that the two values are important. And those two values typically fight with each other. The first murder is between a shepherd and a farmer that killed the shepherd. So the farmers are harder people that are very strict with themselves and with the land, and they're willing to go to war for defending the land, and they would never give it any centimeter up, while a shepherd is an opportunist, and some would even call him a parasite who just wanders from one field to the next. If this one is not green enough, then he goes to the next, and he just wanders around. He is not linked to any land, which is the worst that you can have when you want to create a state, when you want to create a nation. So that's why Hashem particular wants us to become farmers, and the halachos of farming is extremely developed in the Torah, because it's something that really was important for Hashem, that we learn how to do it. But the second pshat comes from the Pri Tzaddik, which I believe is much nicer than my own pshat, and actually he he wants to say that when we look at the klole that Hashem gave to the Odom Rishon after he ate from the eight sadas, he says that there are two things which he adds on. It says v'koitz dardar v'dardar tatzmiach loch v'ochalto es esev asode. It's like a klole, you will eat grass. Now the Chazal teach us in Psuchim that what does it mean? So eating grass, we eat grass, is what's the problem? No, because eating grass is like eating like an animal. So we are compared to animals. So it's something which is not the ideal. The Pri Tzadik explains that the ideal world, the very first mitzvah that humanity has received is mikol eitz hagan ochel toichal, to eat from the fruits of the gan. Besides one tree, not, but from all the fruits we have to eat. And it's only eating fruits that is from a tree. So it is fruits from a tree that is the ideal food that Odom Rishon had to eat. And then after the sin, he was actually pushed to eat also grass, not only boire pri, also boire pri Adoma, and then and then also to eat bread. So he also needs to develop, to take even the wheat, the Adoma, the Esav, and to turn it into something which is called bread, lelechem, and that's also So it is those two elements that were part of a klole be'etzem have become part of a mitzvah, where we even say lechol moroir, lechol matzah. So we have here, which is the moror is keneget ochalto es esav asode, and matzah is keneget bezeas apechot lechem, and gedi, which is something that we were not allowed to eat be'etzem. Originally, the ideal world is where humans are not eating animals, but after the story with the Mabur, we are starting to eat animals, and maybe, like Rav Kook says, maybe in the end of the times, it will become again vegetarians. We won't eat animals anymore, but that's another discussion. But this is a very, very interesting point of view to explain why we're eating those three things together. They are metaken, the achille from Odom Rishon, the klole from Odom Rishon. We are trying to be metaken it. We take the klole and we turn it into a brocha. So that's the Pri Tzadik, very, very nice Pri Tzadik. The next point that I wanted to explain is the fact that there is that Manitou explains that Chag HaMatzos is be'etzem the 7 days that we see in the Torah that we having, that we have to have 7 days of Yom Tov, that the 7 days of Yom Tov represents a week. So it represents again the creation of the world. And the 7th day, the Shevii Shel Pessach, is the Etzem Shabbos, represents the Shabbos. We see it very particularly, and that's interesting because it's not from Manitou. I don't think it's from Manitou, but when you look in the multiple times when the Torah writes down the Chag HaPesach, he always brings down, most of the time, brings down the first day is Yom Tov and the last day is Yom Tov. He's always saying 7 days. The first is Yom Tov and the last is Yom Tov. The first day you're not allowed to do a melucha, and the last day you're not allowed to do a melucha. But there is two times when the Torah doesn't mention that, and the Torah somehow does mention, for example, in Perek Yud Gimel in Shmois, in Parshas Boy, Kadesh Likol Bechor, etc. And then he brings down that Boy Keviyacho, Leretz Haknani, and then you will do you should do the Pesach, the Yom Tov Pesach, the Korban Pesach, Shivas Yomim Toechal Matzos, V'yom HaShvi Chag LaShem. And the 7th day Chag LaShem, it does not mention the first day. So there is no mentioning of the first day that is also Chag LaShem, only mentions the 7th day as being Chag LaShem. And that's a very interesting concept because it's quite similar to how Moshe Rabbeinu himself, when he writes in Parshas Re'eh, he also explains he phrases the word Sheishes Yomim Toechal Matzos Uvayoyim HaShvi Atzeres LaShem Elokecha U'Lesasem Melocha. Now that's a very interesting loshon that he brings down. So he says he brings down a loshon of that's something that you probably also, when I was reading it, Yishesh Yomim Toechal Matzos It's something that sounds very similar to So it's very similar. And it seems that there is a connection between those two. And the connection, according to Manitou, of course, is the creation of the Jewish nation. So you have the creation of humans, that's the Shabbat Bereshis, that celebrates the creation of the whole universe that we celebrate on Shabbos. And on the Shevii Pessach and on the Pessach itself, we celebrate the creation of humanity. Humanity starts with the creation of the Jewish nation. It's a very, very interesting point of view because this is the ideology of Manitou from the beginning, is that the history of humanity starts with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Until there, we were still not clear. The old world was still, the nations were still in a phase of formation. The real formation, the new start, is with the start of the Jewish nation, because the Jewish nation is actually, if you want, is v'nivucho v'chokol goye kol mishparesu adomo, that the idea is that the Jewish nation should be the Or LaGoyim, should be the heart, as the Kuzari calls it, the heart of the nation. It's also called the Goy Mikerev Goy. So basically, we were born from our mother, which was Mitzrayim, and Chazal many times mentioned that Mitzrayim, we were the mother of Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim saw us as a parasite, literally, because like a mother, a child in the stomach of a mother is also considered a parasite. He eats, he receives more. As somebody told me that the ingredients or the minerals and vitamins that a mother eats goes first to the child, and only what's left over goes to the mother. So it's kind of a parasite. And instead of loving the child, the Mitzrayim actually hated the child and rejected it. But originally the plan was, of course, to be born together with Mitzrayim, so there would be a Goy Mitzrayim and with a Goy from Israel that would join together and create a Jewish nation in Eretz Israel. But this did not happen. They rejected the idea, and only a part of the nation, the Erev Rav, that went up. But the Erev Rav also was a collection of different nations, but mainly from Mitzrayim, but also other nations that came together. And so this connection, this symbiosis of the Bnei Yaakov and the children of the world, of humanity, that joined together in order to build a new nation in Eretz Israel. And so that is why the Jewish nation is also considered the heart, because it's everything that happens to the Jewish nation also happens to the nations afterwards, or in the same time, as happened during the Second World War and happened with the creation of a state. The moment that Israel became independent, all the other nations that were colonized also became independent one after the other, and nobody today is colonized anymore. So that's really the idea behind that. And so we celebrate the beginning of humanity and this is the Shevii Pesach represents the Shabbos from the creation, if you want. I brought down that since we're celebrating the birth of a nation, the breaking of the water is actually Kriyas Yamsov, and that's what Shevii Pesach is all about. It's the Kriyas Yamsov is like the breaking of the water of birth, and then when Klal Yisrael came out of it, it actually was the birth, the moment of birth. But more importantly, is that the closing of the water on the military of Mitzrayim was kind of stopping of the previous. So it's the cessation of the past, and so in other words, the whole past has been destroyed, and now we can really start with something completely new. We see that water is always used by Hashem as describing the end of a previous universe. When Hashem created the world, it was Tohu Voyu, but there was not only Tohu Voyu, it was also Mayim. There was the water was all around the world, as it says, Ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamoim. So the whole world was kind of a sort of mabul, and as the Tiferet Yisrael explained, that there are multiple universes that existed, but that failed, and so therefore the Hashem redestroyed them put water all around it. This is called the tohu voyu, and then he recreated it and did the whole procedures the first 3 days, separation of light and darkness, and separations of the waters, and then the bringing up of the abosho. That's always with water. The water symbolizes the destruction of the past, and the birth of then coming out from the water is the birth of something new. That's why also the mabul is also the same way. The mabul is a smaller version of the destruction of the old universe, the old world, and the creation of a new world, which a tevo, the tevo that actually transports the people from the olam of the past to the olam habo, which is the olam hazeh of today. So basically, it's the transition of an old world that is destroyed to a new world that is being created. And of course, the previous humanity that did not really exist yet formally, but the end of the previous time is the closing of the water over the Mitzrayim again. So you see again, the water is kind of symbolizes when water how do you call it, goes over the nation, the world. That symbolizes the end of the past, and then the coming out of the Jews, the Hebrews, was actually the beginning of humanity again. And there's a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara in Sanhedrin mentions it as well, that the Gemara asks, "V'in toimar oisav shonim she'oset HaKadosh Baruch Hu lechadesh bohen es oilomoi, shene'emar v'nizgav Hashem levadoi bayom hahu, tzadikim ma'in oisim." So the question of the Gemara is, what will the tzadikim do when Hashem says that He will be by Himself? So there is a time in Achis Hayom that Hashem will be completely by Himself. It's here the Gemara, for some reason, learned by himself, mamish by himself, and it means that there is nobody will be in the world. So where are the tzaddikim? The tzaddikim will have to, Hashem cannot destroy them, so they have to be there. Is HaKadosh Baruch Hu oisem knofayim k'neshorim, the Hashem will give them wings, v'shotin al pnei hamoyim, it says. And they will be not floating, but flying on the mayim, on the water. So you see in Achis Hayomim, when Hashem wants to be by Himself, when He's going to destroy, it's also through water. It seems to be always through water that it is that the old is stopped, and then there's the beginning of the new. There is one question that I have on that Gemara, which I didn't see in article, really a question, and of course not an answer, is Hashem promised not to do a mabul anymore. So how come that here we see still a mabul, seemingly that there is a mabul? But that's a side question. But I also explained with that, therefore, a mikveh is when you are immersed into water. At the moment that you are immersing yourself, you are back to the tohu voyu, and therefore the tohu voyu, it's like you are destroying yourself, and when you come out of the mikveh, you are reborn to something new, and that's how the tumah can go away. You become toher from the water. So that's a very interesting concept. There is also there is if you want in the Kriyas Yamsuf himself, you see that this is what I've seen from Rabbi Foreman, where the Kriyas Yamsuf itself is kind of a replay in a small way of the Brias Olam. So I explained you the tohu voyu was first, and then came the separation of the first day is the separation of the light and darkness. The second day is the separation of the waters, and the third day is the coming up of the abosho, of the dry land. These are the 3 first days. This is exactly what happened on Kriyas Yamsuf. The night before Kriyas Yamsuf, Hashem gave light to Klal Yisrael and darkness for the Mitzrim. They were in complete darkness. There was a fine line, and He separated light and darkness. He separated during the night also the waters, and He let the Yabosho come up and be straightened so that Klal Yisrael can go up. There's interestingly, he brings down, there's a medrash that says that when somebody was hungry, he would just put his hand inside of the water, and there would be trees with fruits available to be eaten. So basically, why is there fruit? Because that's part of the creation. So everything that happened in the creation is also kind of happened in the Kriyas Yam Suf. Basically, for me personally, I once said it's not really a poshet pshat, but how can we say that Shabbos is a edus? How can we be an ed when we say V'shomru b'nei Yisrael and Vayichul Hashemayim? Vayichul Hashemayim is kind of an ed. We have to stand up. Which type of edus can we say? We weren't there. Hashem created the world before we were even created. So we never seen the creation, but actually we did see the creation. We saw it during Kriyas Yam. So Hashem made it in small to us. He recreated the world for us, but it's not really the world with the universe, with material and humans, but with humanity. He recreated humanity for us, and he destroyed the old humanity, and he created a new humanity for us. There is a last bit that I have actually 2 points that I wanted to make. That I wanted to make is we always claim and we say that the chiyuv of the mitzvah of eating matzahs is because of it says be'erev toichlu matzahs. Actually, there is no posuk be'erev toichlu matzahs. That's not how you have to read the posuk. It's a very interesting concept, which I didn't know, but I've actually seen it. Somebody bring it down, and I would like to share this with you. When it says Berishon barbo osiyom lachodesh bo'erev, that's how you have to read it, and then toichlu matzahs ad yom echad ve'esrim lachodesh bo'erev. So it is mi erev ad erev. So it's Berishon barbo osiyom lachodesh bo'erev. That's comma. Then we say comma. Toichlu matzahs ad yom echad ve'esrim lachodesh bo'erev. So it's like the bo'erev and bo'erev is basically the concept is that it is the beginning of Be'erev and the surface Bo'erev. It's like similar to we say in Yom Kippur, Me'erev ad Erev. So that you have to fast Me'erev ad Erev is also in the Posuk himself, and this is the same thing. So Be'etzem, the Bo'erev Toichlu Matzahs as in one sentence does not exist. It's Bo'erev, which belongs to the previous words, and Toichlu Matzahs belongs to the next sentence. But Chazal, we already discussed it many times. Chazal do not care about the tamim, by the commas. They move the commas how they want. The end of the posuk, even the parshias, they can learn two things: words that are connected, can connect two words, even that the one word is the end of a parsha and the next word is the beginning of a new parsha. Even a parsha's psucho, they can take together and they can learn from it, the smichus. So basically, in limudim, in the Midrash HaTorah Nidreshes Bohem, you never see in the Gemara that asks the question, how can you learn, put a comma there, the verse nachto is there, so you see where the verse nachto is. There's a famous Ritfo that says that Mishukodim by the Menorah is that how should we read the Mishukodim towards the beginning or the end. And so the Ritfo says that today that we have the Tamim in the Posuk, we know how to read it. It's very interesting, as if during the Chazal they didn't have a Tamim, which goes against the Gemara in Megillah, I think, that says that the Tamim we also have from Haloch Moshe Sinai. But anyway, it's a very interesting concept. And the last question that I would like to ask, and I leave you with this question, which I don't have an answer yet. It says in Perek Yud Gimel, in Shmos Perek Gimel, V'adam Hashem Moshe Lemor, Kadesh li kol b'chor petek kol rechem b'fnei Yisrael b'odom b'dveim lihu. So that's what Hashem tells to Moshe Rabbeinu. Go and tell them to be mekadesh the peter rechem, the from b'odom b'dveim. That should be lihu. And so you would expect that now Moshe would tell that story. They would have that sivui. But then Moshe Loam, so he starts off, after that. Zocher Shem Asher Yitzosim Mitzrayim Beis Avodim, Hayom Atem Yoitzim, fine. Bo'er Kivyach Hashem V'Asach Nani, Achit V'Moiri, V'Vadatzis Avodah Aziz B'Chodesh Hazeh. So he suddenly speaks about the Korban Pesach, not about what Hashem asked him to speak about. Shiva Shim Toichal Matzah Yom HaShichak L'Hashem, which I mentioned before. So there is no mentioning of the first day of Yom Tov, only the seventh day of Yom Tov. Matzah Yoch LeShiva Sayomim, Lo Yero Loch Omed, Lo Yero Loch Sol B'Chol Gevech, V'Yigatu Levincha Mitzvah Aseh again to be the Sipur, the Zocher and the Sipur. ביום ההולדמו, בעבור זה עשו השם לי בצאצא ממצרים, ואוי לכו לא יסע להיות לכו, ולזיכום בין עיניכו, למענתי את ארץ השם בפיכו, כי ביות חזוקו את ציח השם ממצרים. ושמחת לחוק הזה למועד יום יומימו. And that's it. And it's now starts a new Parsha Psucha. So this chapter finished. Although Hashem asked him to talk about the Beterechem, and he starts to speak about nothing to do with the Beterechem. It's only the next Parsha. Continues, but he continues with the new Parsha, seemingly a new chapter. He repeats himself, etc. And then he explains the Petach HaMoer and Arifas Petach HaMoer, etc. So it's a question that I've seen already people bring down, and I think it is a very, very interesting question that I'm sure that one day we'll be able to give a beautiful shot on the connection between why did Moshe not want to straight away speak about the Bechor, or what is the connection between the Bechor and Shivas Yomim Torach al Matzah Vayom HaShvi Chag L'Hashem. What is the connection between the Bechor and Yom Tov of Pesach and the Atzeres L'Hashem that he actually mentions, Chag L'Hashem, sorry. May we be Zoiche Dake to the Geule Shleimo Bimheiro V'Yomeinu Amen.